Recapping our third session of Eve of Vecna. Um, Full disclosure, I recorded an entire video prior to this and watched it all back and was like, nah, I didn't like how much I was rambling, how much time I took. I was hoping it was going to be a shorter video. So here we are. Here we are. To start things off, we obviously pick up right where we left off with our crew, having just got out of the Underdark and returned to Sigil and the Sanctum. We introduced a new character this time. Our DM from our normal campaign, our main campaign, he got to play in this campaign, so yay. We introduced Grover, a satyr from Faerun, so still same world, which is, I was kind of hoping that he was going to go out into the multiverse a little bit. When he was asking me about character creation, he was like, so like, where should he be from? I was like, you're putting me in a tough spot. You're putting me yeah, putting me in a tough spot here. So I said any published setting would be fine. Would be we can work with. Obviously knowing full well that we're gonna go to different places. Also was kind of hoping, back of my mind, that he might pick like Exandria or something, because he and I are like the two biggest Critical Role fans. So there was that hope. So with Grover, we did a quick kind of introduction. His backstory is pretty neat. The town he was from got ransacked by an ancient black dragon, and he kind of became his herald or his steward for this black dragon over the years, growing in power. He's a sorcerer, but I think he has some clerical stuff as well. Clerical? That's cleric stuff. I think clerical is more just office stuff. I don't think he has office stuff. So we introduced him. He was leaving to kind of find a new town to kind of restart after getting away from this entity that kind of poisoned his mind and made him do dastardly things. And the portal kind of appears in the woods where he's walking on like a caravan of people going to the next town type thing. And he gets kind of the fast lore dump of everything as he interacts with this portal that takes him to Sigil and the Sanctum. He kind of gets dumped out in the middle of the Sanctum, like just as our party returns from the Underdark. So kind of made it work where we're not too far behind, where the party is still like, okay, I guess we're doing this stuff, and picking up with Grover kind of getting thrown into it, but not so far down the road getting thrown into it that like he's just like, okay. Still being able to work some things in, especially with his backstory. I think it'll be kind of fun, with him very much wanting to find Sylvanas, much like satyrs do, I guess stereotypically, or I think that's a trait. I'm not sure. I didn't really look that up. I understand from like Percy Jackson and media that satyrs want to find their god. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can roll with this. Future spoilers, it is definitely going to play a part. Like, big time. So we have the Wizards 3 that are kind of questioning, but also like, well, this is another weird thing, but if this is happening to us now, obviously you're part of the group that should be here helping defeat Vecna. So they give him the mass lore dump of everything, catch him up to speed. And this is, I think, where we also start giving a little bit more Tasha time. Tasha time? Sure. Grover tries to flirt with, I think, Illustrial and Tasha. And Tasha makes a comment of like, well, I don't think my husband would like that. And he's like, oh, I didn't realize you were married. Tasha's whole reason for being here, I think I mentioned in the previous video, she wants to get Gratz out of the abyss and live as happily ever after as you can, being with the demon prince. But you know, love finds a way. So there's that. The party is kind of banged up from the Underdark, and so the Wizards 3 are like, well, let us examine the rod. Let us keep it here, safe in the sanctum. There's no reason for you guys to be walking around with such a powerful artifact. It's not quite powerful yet, but they did learn that you can use the spell Commune while holding it. But they're pretty much making like a spot to keep all of this stuff that they are collecting. If you're thinking like video games, like, when you're like building up your base, that's how I'm kind of treating Sigil and the Sanctum. Like, we're going to bring stuff in and build it up a little bit more, and have the Wizards 3 kind of in their own little corners doing their own like research and stuff to help them out. I'm kind of like, well, you're just walking around. So I'm giving them kind of a short rest to get hit points back, and then they can really rest if they need to. But kind of trying to impose the like, we're on a time clock now. Like, he's back, whatever he's doing, he being Vecna, we need to get the ball rolling. So we did a little shopping spree. So with this shopping spree, we went back to the Cinder magic shop, which we went to in the first shopping spree in the market of Sigil. And we're met by Quevis, a high elf looking lad that is very kind of flamboyant and happy to help in any way he can. This is mainly just for Grover to get something a little extra as he joined the group. In the last session, we did a shopping spree right before the Underdark, and I had Forrest, our fighter, buy essentially a moon blade. Me being the novice, I was like, yeah, sure, you can find that. And then after the fact, I kind of looked things up and was like, ooh. I was kind of like, well, I feel like lore-wise and like logistically, you really shouldn't have access. Like, it's hard for a DM to say, yeah, you can have all these things because you're technically at the center of the universe type thing. But when like a piece of lore or like a piece of, I don't want to say weapon, but a piece of equipment is so intrinsically tied to like bloodlines and like having to be like bestowed or promised to you, I was like, this is one where I'm kind of like, oh, I regret that. So before they went out to the market, I had Mordenkainen kind of look, because he didn't get to see them before they went to the Underdark last time. He kind of grabbed the Moonblade and he looked at it and he identified it and he just dropped it and it shattered. He's like, by the way, you have to kind of be on the lookout for fakes in Sigil. People will claim all day long that they have marvelous items, but turns out they just make really good replicas. So I think that's in the book as well, where you can like find the Sword of Cast, but it's actually just a fake from Sigil. So unintentionally working with the book in that way, but I was kind of like, what I did instead was I had Mordenkainen essentially work on his already flame tongue sword, and instead of making a +1, made it a +2. Because I felt bad that it was just like a novice mistake for him to like get this powerful item, which I'm not going to be stingy with them getting powerful items, but that particular item, I was like, there's no way to like logically explain how you just bought a moon blade. So I was like, let's backtrack. In that particular sense, they've bought other stuff. They got plenty of other items, but yeah. So what ensues at Cinder which I found in a subreddit of just places that you can just name off the top of your head, or recall for them traveling around Sigil. It's one of the first subreddits that pops up. Just Cinder's Magic Shop is a ring of protection 2. So I looked it up, and that's all I wanted was a ring of something to give him a little bit more protection, since he's a satyr and he doesn't have any armor. So I looked it up quickly and found that rings of protection only go to 1, but there's some from the Exandria stuff that are +2. So I said there's a couple from there. So he grabbed one of those. It was going to be I think 10,000 gold. And he offered to sing a tune to get a discount. And thus ensued the first deviation of, I thought this was just going to be a quick shopping trip, turned into a whole subplot that we can follow at some point, which I was very happy to oblige. So him and Tav, Grover and Tav, start to sing a tune, and the shop kind of opens up the front of it, and it turns into a makeshift stage, complete with a bucket for tossing coin. And they have a marvelous performance. I think they both rolled dirty 20s or nat 20s on their performance checks. I was like, okay, all right, you guys killed it. So much so that Cuevas invites them to the Severed Head Tavern to play a gig that Friday night, to see if they can make some more coin, promising I think he promised anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000, depending on how good the acts were. So they have that to look forward to. Moving right along, we get the lore dump slash Traveler's Guide to Barovia from the Wizards 3 after they return. Basically just saying, hey, don't go into the mist. Please try not to die. And Strahd will be there, and you need to be very cautious. He's going to try to play games with you. So kind of using this as a timeline-wise, Mordenkainen has already did the Mad Mage thing in Curse of Strahd. So he knows of Strahd and what can happen. He feels that obviously they are more prepared this time, and obviously they're going in with more than just himself. So they get the lore dump, and they arrive in Barovia. The rest of the session went by the book. We had some a late start and an interruption that happened with some family things happening. So we didn't get to complete the whole chapter, but that's okay. We got pretty far into it. The rest of the session went by the book, essentially. The only deviations were the townsfolk. Mine just the townsfolk coming up to them immediately, telling them to leave, and that the priest told them not to be here. The priest of Osibus, I haven't heard it said. That's just going with what's in the book. In my version are cultist priests of Vecna, to keep that through line going. So they sit at the back of this 30-person, not flash mob, but 30-person gathering around these people to tell them off. Think Old English, town folk being pissed off. English slash Scandinavian. To which the party immediately starts getting forceful with them instead. One of my players basically bum rushes, shoulder charges into the mob, and tries to make a path for themselves. Another one uses his sword and slices through somebody, thus revealing what Mordenkainen warned them about, of it's not they're people, but he slices through the person, and he gets cut in half into a mist and then kind of just fades down into the cobblestone street. So they kind of like, oh, that's interesting. That's different. From there, I believe Grover pops onto his flying broom that he has that we found about right now. And he kind of goes in the sky and he sees Sour Sanda, and she kind of waves him down to get his companions over to her. They attack a couple more times. The townsfolk start throwing rocks and kind of hitting them with stuff, and then the cultist priests kind of like wave their arms, and the crowd dispenses a little bit. So not necessarily, I didn't want to do like a full encounter because I was like, oh shit, why? But I was like, well, yeah, it makes sense. If I got surrounded, yeah, I get it. I wouldn't want to be surrounded by 30 plus people yelling at me either. For Sour Sanda, I'm not following much of her storyline within this book except for like an introduction of what's happening at the estate, as well as kind of giving hints as to how many priests of Vecna are there, and that like some cultish stuff is happening with the Dursts. Other than that, I'm tracking her in the sense that like she's in the house with them at the same time, but they don't really bump into each other. The party also did not really like explore the house that much. I think they went to 3 rooms total. 4 if you count like when they got out of certain haunted zones, but they didn't explore it like at all. So Strahd greets them in the first foyer and just is like, hey, you guys are all the same. Like, all the you adventurers come through here wanting the shiny bit and not having any fun, and I want to have some fun. Welcome to my house of horrors. That doesn't sound right. Welcome to my death house. Dun dun dun. I know, very cheesy and cringy, but you got to do what you got to do. So they start exploring. They go into the first door, and it's the haunted zone of the Great Hall. In this zone, you see Strahd at the end of the table. I made it like a 20 or like 10 each side plate great table. 10 plates a side. There we go. And he gives a monologue about toasting to, everlasting life and stuff like that. And in the text of the book, it says if anybody makes a move towards him, they get teleported back to the front of the table where their chalices of very, very dark, irony smelling wine is. Blood. I believe Tav Misty stepped, like started walking towards him, then Misty stepped behind him and slashed through him. I did a pretty bad job of explaining that it's twofold. I didn't really explain that it wasn't Strahd, and the party didn't really like look for clues to see if it was Strahd or not. So kind of on both of us. I could have done better at describing that it was an illusion and not him. But how it kind of played out was they were thinking it was Strahd, and if we're going by that, then him turning into bats in this section is a little bit more fun that he messed with them. The only part that doesn't make sense in this section, if it was Strahd, was that he like held his chalice up for them to cheers or take a sip, and he just froze there. Wishy-washy. So in the module, you're supposed to take a sip from the chalice that is given to you, and you get teleported back out somewhere in the house. You make a roll, a D6 roll. Tav, after slicing and getting they get hit with bats. The room fills with bats once Tav slices. So the room gets full. I think it's 1d6 plus 4 or 2d6. I think I did. Yeah, 2d6. So they get hit a couple times. And then I had the bats kind of like retreat and then come back if they did anything stupid. And this is only because Grover decided to be a smartass about this entire thing. So Tav immediately was like, oh, we're supposed to drink. And even Forrest, like the technically not so smart one, even understood, oh yeah, we need a drink. They both get out of there pretty quickly after getting hit once, I think. Grover, on the other hand, decides to very blatantly say, I'm going to act like I'm taking a sip, but I'm not going to actually sip it. And then I'm going to say, oh, very, very good stuff, Strahd. Grover is supposed to be basically Crush from Finding Nemo. A very surfer dude, high all the time type person. So he does that. We go through the whole thing again of Strahd turning into bats, hitting him. Grover throws up a fireball in the middle of the hall, kills like 99% of the bats, and then the room resets again. He does the same thing, and he takes a sip, quote unquote sip, and says, it's so good. Very blatantly saying, I'm not taking it, like saying above table, I'm not taking a sip. I was like, okay. Bats turn on again, and they're heading towards him and about to hit him. I made it because he was being not stubborn, but like I get what he was trying to get at, because he thought Strahd was real, so he was trying to play the game. I had the bats pretty much hit him into the failed portion of it, and he reappeared up in the attic. So that's how we got to there. From there, Grover yells, and Forrest and Tav appear on like a balcony railing. I think on the stairwell that they just saw, kind of like slumped over, like sliding down a little bit, per the table. They hear Grover kind of yell, and they start heading upstairs. They check one of the doors that they think they're hearing the yelling from, and the recital haunted zone happens. Basically in this, you're supposed to continue on the tune that Strahd is playing on his harp around this like circle of 8 ghostly figures sitting in these chairs. Again, it was one of those where I wish I would have explained it better, like in retrospect, but you know, I realized after the fact that like Forrest isn't probably going to pick up on those things because of his intellect score. Also, he doesn't have an instrument. He starts clapping as soon as Strahd gets done, or like pauses for you to continue on, and all the ghosts go through him, and he takes some necrotic damage. And he's like, what am I doing wrong above table? And I was like, you talked. And he's like, shit, okay. I sit back down, and it restarted. To which keyed in Tav to, oh, okay, maybe I'm supposed to do something else. And Tav played his lute to a tune. I think he got a dirty 20 on this as well. Did very well on the tune, and immediately bamped out of there. Tav bamped out and into the dungeon area of the map, down by the well where all the priests chambers are. Tav did not, but he's on the second go around, he kind of tapped his leg and hummed along a little tune, and it was like a good enough check saving that he got out of there. I kind of like mixed a failed attempt with a save attempt, so it's okay. But he appears up in the attic where Grover was. Grover was kind of wandering and trying to see where to go from there. He found a secret door, basically led to a one-person like stairwell down out of this room. And so they find that they reconnect, and they head downstairs into the dungeon area, realizing, this stairwell, this secret stairwell, takes them all the way down to the dungeon. Down here in the dungeon area, they immediately start hearing chants and kind of noises, voices down in the area. And they start kind of moving in that direction as they hear it. There's supposed to be like traps and stuff here. I think Tav was the only one that was in any trap trouble, and he saw them immediately. So probably could have added in some more like an encounter, since they were still split technically. I think at one point Grover yells in the tunnels once they kind of reconnect with each other. And that queued up 3 of the priests of Vecna, in the book priest of Osebus, which I kept their priestly necromantic boons that are really cool. Nice little addition to like stuff happening, or like a nice little mechanic to use. I think there was the ectoplasm one that like once they die they kind of bust into, the thing from Ghostbusters, the big green ghost that they find in the hotel. I can't think of the name right now. That thing. I'll put a picture here once I find it. But yeah, that thing. You know what I'm talking about. That thing. And then one turns into a flame skull after they die. And then I believe one kind of like empowers itself and gets bigger. But it died as well. Pretty easy for them. There's only the 3 of them. By that time, I'm saying that Sarasanda beat the other 2 walking around the house while they were in the dungeon, which kind of leads us to the tail end of where we kind of ended things. They walked through the dungeon. They were very much not wanting to explore most of the house. They didn't really want to explore the dungeons. They just wanted to get to the chants and what was happening, which makes sense. If I heard creepy stuff happening in a house called the Death House, I'd probably want to do the same thing. Probably not. Probably want to leave, but whatever. They get to the ritual chamber room where they see a relentless pike, I believe it's what it's called, kind of forming out of the blood of the nanny that was slain, with a stake that had the piece of the Rod of Seven embedded into it, or used as like the tip of the stake. Again, they didn't like explore the house, so they wouldn't know that this is the nanny. The only thing they really like saw throughout the house was like pictures of the Dursts. So that's their only like reference point for like people, if they would see them. In the book Eve of Ruin, it describes that there's like a bunch of cultists around and the Dursts are part of them. So when they are looking around, they do notice the Dursts are there, because it's kind of like a sunken in flooded area, and then there's like walkways that they're all standing on dry land essentially. So we used this dais to put at the center. I'm holding it weird, but I think I just picked it up off Amazon. Really cool, I think. It's got skulls all the way around, kind of some other stuff. I put a little like sponge in there to do the fire effect, mainly because I didn't have any cotton until I realized I had cotton back behind me. Oops. But that is where we left off. So this will be Death House Part 1. Again, we had an interruption and we started late, so we didn't get completely through the chapter. I have mapped out like this fight with the relentless piker, and then after that Strahd will appear and they'll have a full-on fight with Strahd as well, and monologues and all that stuff. So I kind of mapped it out already what the next session will be. Mainly just a fight, since we didn't really get to do much this session with that and Strahd. So yeah, we have that. Fun session. I mean, I still like the idea of this book is still like cool. I think people can use it again like as a scaffolding and create things adjacent to it, or like get the main through line of Vecna coming back and being in power and trying to be the one deity again, and put your own twists on it. I enjoy it from a DM perspective of it gives me all the stuff that I need in terms of like creatively. Not in the sense of like this is a creative endeavor and it's amazing. It's in the sense of it gives me enough ideas where I can expand and go in a different direction, but still hold the through line of Vecna, if that makes sense. So yeah, we have another session. We have our main session this weekend on Valentine's Day weekend with the unknown heroes, and then we will at some point come back to facing Strahd in the Death House, which is I'm thankful for, because I want to like really kind of scare them in a sense. Strahd is one of those that you want to do them right, knowing just D&D things, but also tying this in with the main storyline of Vecna whispered to him, be on the lookout for these guys, and he's still kind of looking out for himself of like, yeah, Vecna warned me about you, but I'm not taking sides here. You can go talk to Cass, you can go be friends with Vecna. I am looking out for Strahd and Strahd alone, type thing. That's what I'm trying to portray to them. In the background, I think we have some interesting moving pieces still. Tasha going to get Gratz with the Chime of Exile. She kind of grabbed from the party, mainly because they're not going to use it, and I needed a way for Tasha to kind of exit stage left for a little bit. So that's why she grabbed that, and she's getting information in the background and potentially going to barter that chime to get one of the pieces of Rod of Seven from Gratz, so they don't have to go to the Abyss. What else is in the background? Cass will pop up in either Astral or Eberron. Not this one. I felt like if we popped up in here, it'd be a little weird having two vampires in the same plane that have never talked to each other. So I didn't want to put too many vampires in one area. Too many vampires in one setting is bad. Thank you guys for watching. And we will move on into the next one next time we get to play a session. I enjoy doing these little recap videos. Full disclosure, I recorded an entire video prior to this one and didn't like how I was rambling on too much, so I came back and did this little whole spiel. So the video that you see now is the second attempt at this, and yeah, sometimes you need to do that creatively. So yeah, the Eve of Vecna Death House Part 1. Thanks. See you in the next one.